Another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And now, without further ado, here's the host of the Hispanic Patriot, Hugo Chavez Ray. Give it up for Hugo.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hope everybody has not broken their New Year's resolutions yet. And if you have, you're okay, because we're probably 90% of us have already done that. We're a little more than a week into the new year, and of course, New Year's resolutions are about as fleeting as you know what. So, anyway, welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We are now launching into full primary season mode. We've got the Iowa caucuses this coming Monday. It's the first of many to come, and there's going to be a lot of fireworks, despite the fact that it's almost a foregone conclusion. But I don't like to count my chickens before they're hatched. So President Trump enjoys a nice lead, and we're hoping for his success and progress into the convention and eventual nomination. But first things first, Iowa caucuses are coming up Monday. Last night there was a debate between the two remaining candidates besides President Trump, and that is Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. So they went head to head. So we're going to be playing some clips about that and doing some commentary about what we found out. At the same time, President Trump held his own Fox News town hall in Iowa at the very same time. And from all indications, of course, the viewership is far outweighed President Trump's town hall versus Nikki Haley on CNN with Ron DeSantis. But we're going to play some clips that are, I think, pertinent to the topics that we're facing right now. And the first one that we're going to be coming up on is Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis talking about immigration policy. So, Peter, take it away. Let's start with the first video, and then we'll pause throughout the video and do some commentary.
All right, stand by. Hang on, let me start from the beginning here. All right. Here we go.
In one of the biggest years for illegal border crossings into the United States, last month alone, 225,000 migrants illegally crossed the southern border. It's a record high, overwhelming the Border Patrol resources that are already stretched thin. Mayors across the country say their cities are being pushed to a breaking point. Governor DeSantis, former President Trump, famously promised to build a wall on the southern border. He obviously did not get that done. You have promised to finish the job. How will you succeed where he failed?
We will build a wall. We will actually have Mexico pay for it in the way that I thought Donald Trump was. We're going to charge fees on remittances that workers send to foreign countries, billions of dollars. We'll build the wall. He also promised record deportations. Donald Trump deported fewer people than Barack Obama did when he was president. Biden's let in 8 million people just in 4 years. They all have to go back. We have to enforce the rule of law in this country. Think about what's happening to our country. Just this week, we saw the news that a school in Brooklyn, New York, had the kids stay home. They were not able to go to school, told you can't go get an in-person education. Why? Because the city's commandeering the school to house illegal aliens in it. Talk about putting Americans last. You're putting these kids out of an education because you can't control the border. Biden has failed in this endeavor. He has not taken care that the laws of this country be faithfully executed. Do not trust Nikki Haley with illegal immigration. That's like having the fox guard the hen house. She's on tape at the Aspen Institute. She'll say she didn't say it.
It's a wrecking ball.
She was chastising conservatives, saying it's disrespectful to illegal aliens to say that they're criminals. They're violating the law. It's disrespectful when people come to this country illegally. and impose burdens on our communities and run drugs into this country. That's what's disrespectful. She's weak on immigration. She's bankrolled by people who want open borders, and she said there shouldn't be a limit on immigration. You should work with corporate CEOs.
Thanks, Governor.
That is pale pastels. That
Governor,
is warmed
thank
over
you so much. So,
corporatism.
Governor Haley,
He's ready to go.
Yeah.
Governor DeSantis and also Donald Trump are attacking you for that comment in 2015 in which you said undocumented immigrants should not be called, quote, criminals. At the time, the full context is you said, quote, we don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're families that want a better life, and they're desperate to get here, unquote. Do you still feel that way?
I saw them. When I was at the United Nations, I saw them. That doesn't mean we should let them into our country. I mean, first of all, I will tell you that when I was governor of South Carolina, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. Obama sued us over it, and we won. We fought Obama on illegal immigration. We fought Obama on migrant kids. We fought Obama on Syrian refugees. We fought Obama on Guantanamo Bay prisoners. I have always said we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. But I will tell you, in passing that toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we passed E-Verify, which I want to take national, which is where businesses have to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. I passed it within 6 months of being governor. Ron didn't pass it for 5 years. He only waited to pass it when he decided to run for president. What we need to do is not just ban a wall. We need to put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We need to make sure we go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we need to go to catch and deport. That's the only way we'll stop the incentives of these illegal immigrants coming across. Biden turned around and gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary protective status. That's 500,000 driver's licenses, 500,000 social security numbers. All that does is incentivize them to pick up the phone, call their family members, and tell them to come
Governor
ahead.
DeSantis.
She did bring, when she was governor, she did bring Syrian refugees, and she got criticized for that.
That is not
she
true.
Also, in her comment,
Hold on one second, Governor.
That is not true.
We'll give you your turn in a second. Governor DeSantis.
So,
pause it right here.
The disrespect comment. She's talking.
Okay, so right there, Nikki Haley was channeling her inner Trump. She plagiarized Trump to the hilt in just about everything she just said.
Well, that's like 70% of what they've been doing on that debate stage this whole time.
Yep. So the part that she doesn't talk about, and this is where the trust issue comes in. You know, I don't know the numbers, but I've spoken to some friends that live in South Carolina, and they did not like Nikki Haley. And I mean, she was a preference over the Democratic alternative, but at the same time, they didn't like what she did with the state flag issue when she stood up against the design of the state flag and literally banned the Confederate flag from the state of South Carolina, which is, you know, one of the strongest southern states from the Civil War. So she's not very. Yeah,
a lot of South Carolinians go. My mom lived there near Hilton Head for a while. A lot of South Carolinians out there, they live on properties and homes, plantations, whatever, that go back all the way to the Civil War. It's crazy.
Exactly.
The roots. It's a lot of history out there.
So what do you think about the policies there, Nick? Which one did you like?
Well, to be honest, I really like the policies. I just would like them coming from Trump, the originator of all of these. I mean, that's ultimately, I think that when I look at DeSantis and Haley up there, I see two kids arguing over who's going to get dad's car. I mean, I really do. It's between their energy being far less than Trump, between so much of that they've been doing has been plagiarized from him. I really do feel like that it's like children trying to, skip the line in terms of what's going on in terms of generational power, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'd be the last person to argue that young people shouldn't be involved with things. But these guys are not better just because they're younger than Trump. And that's sort of what they've really been banking on this whole time. I think they're very similar to each other in a lot of ways. And most of that is the old style of pre-Trump Republicans. They really are that, but with the body and skin of the new Republican, the new post-Trump Republicans. And I'm not convinced by it. And I don't think judging on the poll numbers, I don't think most Americans are convinced of it either. They really just seem like factory made out of the political machine as a replacement to what they want us to give up. And that to me alone is why I'm sticking with Trump over these guys. And I think Haley being more of an internationalist kind of, UN type. I think one point during the debate, she said that she turned South Carolina into an economic powerhouse. And I said, South Carolina, an economic powerhouse. Okay. Just there's so much tooting of one's own horn on both sides of this. And I want to say which one I like better, and I just don't really like either of them. I mean, I'm looking at a declawed cat and a neutered dog. That's what I'm saying.
Nikki is a globalist.
She openly is. She even said right there, I was there at the United Nations, and I saw them. I saw those families, and I didn't see a single military-age man. I tell you what, and it's unconvincing. We know where they both are at, and they can't pretend to be where they're at right now forever. They were somewhere else before, and we know it.
What's the globalist agenda? Any American that desires freedom, or anyone in the world that desires freedom for that matter, how does that fit in the globalist position? I mean, there's only one way that a globalist economy works, and that's under dictator rule. I mean,
the globalist agenda is a one world order.
Right, exactly. So my question is, how can someone like Nikki Haley, a Republican, I mean, she's a secret globalist, or is she outspoken about it?
I think that it's that she's open about it in the sense of that she speaks openly their policies and everything, but she wants to pretend to be a different sort of globalist. I'm the globalist that cares about my country.
Right.
Like I said, it's extraordinarily unconvincing. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
I think the telling part of Nikki Haley is, and I don't have anything against her personally, but her political viewpoints are definitely globalist and interventionist. She is one that would get us into wars. And secondly, the big red flag for me, and I told some friends on Facebook just yesterday about this, one that was thinking that Nikki Haley was looking good and whatever. And I said, big red flag for me is that the left-wing media is propping her up.
Yeah.
That would be a huge red flag for any conservative, because the left-wing media does not prop up anybody that is not leaning their way, or at least can be manipulated to push their agenda. And to a certain extent, she is pushing the left-wing agenda. Let's get back to the clip real quick and see what else they've got going on.
Talking about that they're all families. If you look right now at the border, these are military-age males, many of them, and they're coming from all across this world, not just from Central America. In fact, you've got them from China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East. When I was down there a couple years ago, because I've sent people down there, you had people from Libya and Haiti. This is a ticking time bomb for this country. There are, of course, going to be terrorist cells that have come in. It's like the lowest cost way to be able to harm this country. Just send people across the southern border. Nikki Haley also opposed the border wall in 2016. She said that she ridiculed it when Donald Trump was president. I'm telling you, you need a wall. You can't trust politicians to do this. If the wall's there, it's a physical fact of life, and it's a huge step to restoring this country's sovereignty.
Thank you, Governor Haley.
Go to DeSantisLies.com. I said you can't just build a wall. You have to do more than build a wall. It was having the wall and everything else. You can't trust what Ron's saying. But this is a bigger issue. This is more than him just constantly being desperate and throwing things on me. This is the fact that we have to realize my parents came here illegally. They came the right way 50 years ago. They put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by what's happening on the border. And my mom would always say, if they don't follow the law, laws to come into this country, they won't follow the laws when they are in this country. And we have to start treating this like it is. This is putting harm on our schools, on our hospitals. Taxpayers are paying for it. You see, these mayors are now upset about it. The only reason Eric Adams is now upset, why? He shouldn't be a sanctuary city then. That's why we have to defund sanctuary cities. Now Governor Abbott finally did to them what's been happening to Texas for so long. We've got to put an end to this. It's dangerous, and it doesn't even count the fentanyl that's
Governor DeSantis. There are more than 10 million undocumented immigrants already living in the United States, according to Pew Research. Will any of them be allowed to stay in the United States under your administration?
The number of people that will be amnestied when I'm president is 0. We cannot do an amnesty in this country. First of all, it's going to do is cause more people to want to come illegally. So you got to enforce the law. It's got to be consistent. People got to know it's there. You also have to remove benefits for people who are here illegally. You know, California, you can go illegal alien and you get free health insurance coverage. You're here illegally and they're doing that. We should not let states provide these benefits. You know, in Florida, obviously, we don't do that. We don't allow the driver's license and all that. But some states do, and it creates a magnet for people coming in. So federally, no benefits, no enticements to come in. And then the states, we're going to crack down on sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. And I showed the hypocrisy of all this back in 2022, because we have a program to transport illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions. And one of the places we sent 50 to, beautiful, liberal Martha's Vineyard. And you know what? These are folks that were on their high horse, saying how they were a sanctuary jurisdiction, saying nobody's illegal, all refugees are welcome. That's what they had in their town. The minute even 50 came up, they called a state of emergency and deported them off the island the next day. How do you think Texas feels? How do you think all these other communities feel that are overwhelming?
I remember
overwhelmed?
that.
So we cannot have liberal elites in this country imposing policies on the rest of us that they are not willing to deal with the consequences of themselves.
Governor Haley, when you're president, will any of the more than 10 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. be allowed to stay in the country under your administration?
You have to deport them. And the reason you have to deport them is they're cutting the line. You've got people who have done this and tried to go through the right way. You can't have them go and jump the line and suddenly do that. And that is actually what will get them to stop coming, is when they do realize they get to the wall and they have to turn around and go back. It's a dangerous process of what happens for them to try and migrate here.
Stop it right here for a second.
The United Nations, and we had this, which is another reason why we.
Okay, so what she just said is that we have to deport them and that will stop them from coming. That's not really the meat of the matter. The meat of the matter is they come here because they know they can be hired and that they can work here. In Peru, where I just came back from, Venezuelans have flooded Peru, but guess what? They can't legally work there. So where are they? They're begging on the street corners and at traffic lights because their laws will not permit them to work legally, and employers will not hire them. And until we get employers in the United States to stop hiring illegal immigrants, that problem is not going to be easily stopped, because they come here because they know they can work. If we started fining these employers, and she mentioned E-Verify, E-Verify is a fine tool, except it's not enforced. So what good is it? It's like having a traffic light that says stop it, at your
when you want to, basically.
When you want to, stop or not, So it's like my wife says in Peru, stop signs are what do you call it? Stop signs are suggestions. They're not really enforced, okay? And it's the God's honest truth. In Peru, it's survival of the fittest on the road. So this is what she's missing the point on. I wish any of them would come up and say, stop hiring illegals, and guess what? They'll stop coming because they will know they can't come here to work. I'll let you guys chime in on that.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think you said it the best, is that she really believes that her, single issue, e-verify, whatever have you. I feel like a lot of times when these politicians, these, I don't want to call them rhinos because they really aren't. They are, sincere Republicans. They're just of a variety that's particularly owned by donors. And they even had a little tiff later on about, oh, you only dislike me because, the donors like me more. It's very silly. Their sincerity ends at the election. As soon as they get into office, that's never what it's about, because I think we talked about it before, that Trump is his own man. And whatever you think of Donald Trump, a man who is his own man is always better than a puppet, because a puppet has strings, and whatever they're saying there, they can change. They won't be the same when they get into office. And we all know that about politicians. Trump was the only one to break that mold. And so I think these people are very much missing the point entirely of their rhetoric. They might sound good, they might look good, but at the end of the day, they should honestly just both get married so that they could both be sanctimonious, because that's what I'm hearing is sanctimony and sanctimony. I mean, they're going to abolish sanctuary cities and then have, sanctimony cities, because that's all I'm hearing out of their rhetoric is nothing strong, nothing decisive. Yes, what they're wanting, that they're claiming they're going to do is strong, but you can almost feel it in their hearts that this has nothing to do with anything beyond the election, because then reality sets in. And we saw this with George W. Bush. We saw this with, and the older viewers, you've seen this with constant Republican candidates, often those who failed to the Democratic candidates that have, ruined things in the 80s and 90s after Reagan and such. These people, or in the 90s, especially under Clinton, these people haven't learned from Trump. That's really why I think they're not good successors to Trump, is they haven't learned from him. Like you said, the meat of the substance, which is the decisive problem, not a single issue about the problem. It's not a checklist. And that's what I feel like they're trying to do. They're trying to check the checklists when their own solutions sort of betray their intentions, that their solutions are not strong enough. They're not numerous enough. And Trump also did not just build the wall. He hired more Border Patrol agents. He had less deportations because less people were trying to cross in the first place. So, it's all these politician games, the things we're tired of, the things that we were tired of in 2016.
So sorry, go on.
Please, no, please. That's all.
Go ahead, Peter.
I'm going to probably break the hard right-wing rhetoric here, or the stance here, because I'm just trying to figure out, last week we talked about this, and I read the saying of the Statue of Liberty. It says, give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning for freedom, right? And I have to sit back and think about that. Like, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? And so when I hear politicians saying amnesty to no one, I mean, I have to ask myself, like, dude, do you want a heartless robot in office? Like, we talked about like having people with educations and this and that, but if I read the Statue of Liberty, that's not what that means. That means give us the ones in the most dire situations, right? The ones that are under the boot of the dictators and the communists, that they're in desperate situations, right? So why wouldn't, with that notion, because you got to also understand our entire Constitution was based out of the Bible. And if you actually read the Bible and you read what Jesus says, it's very contrary to a lot of our modern conservative evangelical, stance.
Well, if I could give a little bit of insight,
let me finish my thought real quick.
Go right ahead, please.
So what I would say is I think the ones coming from, dictator Venezuela should take precedent over the ones that are comfortable, but they're, there's got to be a way to help those people. That's the whole point, and so open borders, no. But instead of trying to make the ones that need it the most, how can we figure out how to screen them, help them, not send them back, throw them back to the wolves? We are supposed to be an altruistic nation, right? Like we're all America first, America first. Well, you know what the Gospels say? The Gospels, Jesus said the first will be last and the last will be first.
That's fair.
So it's like, let's try and look at the situation with logic and reason, but leading with love and empathy, because that is the spirit of America. And that is the problem with, you got hard righters and hard lefters. There is absolutely no middle ground. It's two dogs on each side of the fence. Once you actually open the fence, those two dogs that are just barking at each other, they actually go and sniff and talk and meet, and then they're friends. It's like, then they can work, they can actually solve problems.
I've actually been seeing that in my generation quite a lot. I mean, every time, I get like Democratic activists come to my door or whatever, and I talk to them. I tell them I'm a Republican, and if they're usually, about my age, they completely understand. No, and we don't want to have that same fight. But I think that this is the principle at play here that's really difficult, not just in politics, but everything. What's true is true all at the same time. And what's unfortunate about politics is we can often, like you said, get to a point where we only see one side of the truth, not the other side, and not realizing that that's true all at the same time. Something like I'm a first and second generation, first on my dad's side, second on my mom's side generation immigrant. And we absolutely believe in that sort of those principles that got us here. Nikki Haley was even, talking about her own background as an immigrant. But there's some principle where in bad situations, such as the open border, the people who rise to the top, who rise to the front of that line, are the most ruthless, the ones most willing to lie, the ones most willing to, get a little bit of extra money the wrong way. These are the people that succeed when the people guarding the gate are asleep at the wheel. When we actually have that strong leadership in place, even though it is extremely harsh sounding, it sounds like, this evil tyranny, is Donald Trump going to be a dictator? Those strong people are the ones who are most able to gently open the door for those who deserve it. But right now we have a administration who's openly okay with opening the door to people who don't deserve it, and that not deserving it is not based on them being weak or fleeing bad situations. I feel for the Venezuelans. I feel for these Hispanic people that don't deserve to live under communism, Cuba, all these places. But these people often gravitate towards Trump. They're not gravitating towards people like Haley and DeSantis. And I think the reason for that is Hispanic people, especially, those values of strength is how the virtuous provide justice. That's really strongly at play. And I think we've forgotten that in America. I'm going to say it out loud. I think we've forgotten this in America. That we need the strong hand, but we also need the loving heart that hand is attached to.
One thing, Peter, I totally understand where you're coming from the compassion side. However, what do you say to those who are in line doing it the right way, and you're going to say, well, we're going to let these 100 jump the line and be ahead of you, even though you were doing it the proper way? That's where the unfairness lies. And there's nothing.
Triage. It's triage. If you go into an ER, you have triage. The nurse up at the front, the triage nurse, will determine which is the most life-threatening that needs to be seen the soonest. And that's what I'm saying. There's got to be some kind of a triage here, because
now you're talking about asylum. Okay. Asylum is a law,
and asylum's not immigration, for what it's worth.
If you look at the asylum laws, they are very clear. Asylum seekers who truly fit the definition of asylum, they do get preferential treatment, and they do get treated differently than the average immigrant who is just applying to emigrate.
But the left obscures that. I don't know that the left obscures that so hard.
Yes,
very unfair.
And they want to portray everybody as asylum seekers.
They want to use the asylum seekers as a shield for the illegal immigrants.
That's far left and far right. It's like we either lock things down completely, or we just open them up completely. And so, like Hugo, what you're saying, asylum, great. All I'm saying is I don't think it would be in our values as America to just throw the asylum seekers back to the wolves. I think there's got to be a better way.
I think that's pretty fair. It's like separating the asylum and immigration issues. I do think that's
a fair viewpoint, but let me give you an analogy. Okay. All right. You have a wife and how many kids?
3.
Okay.
Oh, me? Wife? I have a son. My wife and my son.
You have a wife and children, right? And a home.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes knocking on your door and says, I want to occupy 10% of your home because I deserve it. I'm in dire straits, and you should allow me to enter your home and take over 10-20% of your home. What would your response be to that?
If somebody comes demanding, that's a different story. But if a family in need comes to my door and says, we're sick, we're dying, we need help, we need shelter, and I would take them in. I would give them shelter and give them hospitality. As long as I felt they weren't a threat to my family, of course.
Can I actually make a point, actually, if that's quite all right as a first, because I had an insight
that's
for
what
young...
Jesus says to do. I mean, that's what we're talking about, Matthew 25. It's like all of these Christians, well, that's who he's talking to, is Christians who did not give him a place to stay when he needed one, Well,
I think that community is a huge part of that, because I think that one thing we want to remember is Jesus taught us to work as more than just one person, work as a community of Christians. And I came from numerous immigrant communities, Polish, my German family, but especially the Mexican immigrants and the Hispanic immigrants in general. A lot of young, just from my own perspective, a lot of young first-generation American citizen immigrants, I know a lot of them who actually gravitated to the far right, specifically because of their immigrant background, whether that was right or wrong. Specifically because they felt that what they were promised as Americans, as fully assimilated Americans, was not provided. And what they felt is that a more influx of immigration would lead to their chance of living an assimilated or properly American life was decreasing more and more and more as these new immigrants came in. So a lot of it was not that they were opposed to the immigration that allowed them to come here, but that we needed a full stop in that sort of extreme sense you're talking about in order to clean out, it's sort of like a drain or anything. You need to stop the water in order to remove the obstructions. And those obstructions right now are the illegal immigrants for economic purposes. And let's be honest, we are not talking about illegal immigrants in an uncharitable or unhumanitarian manner. These people are being used by these corporations sometimes as slaves, depending on where they are from, where they're coming from, what they're doing. So we want to free them from their situation. But unfortunately, freedom is not freedom if they're not integrated citizens of this country. Right, freedom might look more like where they're from. And we have to say something. Foreign countries are not exclusively hellholes. Many countries in the last 30, 20 years have become so much better than they were back then. Mexico is one of them. Poland is one of them. I have friends from Hungary that talk about it. There is a lot of good countries developing out there, and sending people back home is not necessarily a death sentence. But for communist countries like Venezuela or Cuba or China, North Korea, absolutely. Absolutely. But we still need to vet them because of that terroristic and criminal enterprises that use them to protect them.
I'm not advocating an open border.
No, of course. No one's saying you are.
I have a front door on my home. Guess what? I lock it at night. I'm not
right, of course.
You got to keep out the wolves. I'm talking about the wounded sheep. And so I'm just saying, it goes just clearly, we as a nation, it is in our DNA to house the poor, to house the homeless, to bring them in. That's the gospel. That's what we're supposed to do.
But let me ask you this, Peter. In your mind, is the United States capable of just allowing anyone and everyone in?
No, like I said, to finish my point, there's got to be. What do you mean? Like let immigrants in?
What's your limit in sense of immigration policy? I mean, can the country sustain any number of immigrants every year?
I don't know. I don't know how many we get.
I mean, it can't. Yeah. Not if we're going to survive as a society and as a country ourselves. So it goes back to the analogy of taking care of your family first, and then what you have to spare, you can use in compassionate ways for those that are, like you say, in dire need. And those have to be filtered out to the point to where you say, okay, you are a true asylum seeker. Mm-hmm. You are someone who was in true dire need. And so you get preferential treatment. but there has to be a orderly process by which.
I know. I agree. Right. Because we got to keep out the wolves.
Yeah,
like
thank you for that reminder of compassion, though. We do need those voices to remind us.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the problem. And that's what I'm not seeing at all here. what I'm seeing is.
Especially on that debate stage. No, you are right about that.
What I'm seeing is I don't give a shit about the refugees and the people that are serious need. Like, we don't care. We're going to throw up, like, if you got.
Well, I will say Nikki Haley did kind of say that.
Let me finish this point real quick. If we become this elitist nation with big closed lockdown borders, and I guarantee you, first off, God will remove his blessing off of that. I promise that.
Well, I don't know about that.
Number two, absolutely it would. Look what happened to Rome. Look what happens to every single religious institution. Once it gets all big and proud and top heavy, God blows it up.
Well, I mean, as a point is, we are one of the biggest, most populous countries in the world. We have hundreds of millions of people, and those people are mostly immigrant based, everything. So we have to remember something, that our American people are immigrants as well. So when we talk about immigration, let's remember that we have population that is already here, that we're immigrants. Our care for people does not stop when they stop being immigrants. And I think that's an important point to make.
Yeah, and so I agree. We got to take care of our own too. We have to do it. There's got to be an orderly process. All I'm saying is we do have to give preference to the lowest of the low, the ones like. Again, I go back to that Statue of Liberty.
Well, of course, maybe we can do a show about that before, because we do have some other clips about economics and some other stuff to get to. So I don't know if
let's just go ahead and move on.
Yeah. But we can always talk about this in another show. Immigration is always going to be important to an Hispanic Patriot.
Okay, so are we going to a different video?
Let's finish a little bit of this one. This is a couple of minutes left.
Just a time check. It's 6:36, just so you know.
Okay. We need to have Trump here defending himself and talking about what he would do going in the future, because it's a problem. I was on the ground in Honduras and Guatemala, and what we saw is a lot of the reason why they were coming from there is because of gangs and drugs. And so what we did was we had our military go and train them on how to deal with gangs. We went and put drug boats on the water to keep the drugs from coming. But we said, you have to have them processed from here. You can't have them come. We were able to stop that flow. We've got to go back to do that. But we need to end it once and for all. Donald Trump didn't do that. That's why he needs to be here debating on the stage right now.
A pivotal night at the podium for presidential candidates Wednesday as they faced each other.
What's our next video on that? Let's go to... Let's go to. No, wait a minute. Where are we at? Okay. Okay, let's go to the Iowa caucuses.
Very nice.
Here's on Fox. I wanna show the count.
Hang on, guys. Sorry, I got out.
You got it. Don't worry.
I clicked I X'd out the wrong.
That's okay. That's okay.
On my Restream browser.
That's okay.
Here we go. Iowa caucus coming up. Hang on.
Nice.
And this is Trump at the town hall that he held during the same time this Haley DeSantis debate was on.
It's funny that Fox hosted that debate, CNN the other, and now they're switched this time.
Yep.
Pivotal night at the podium for presidential candidates Wednesday as they faced each other in the final debate before voting gets underway. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us how it wasn't the debate many would have pictured when this race began.
Very true.
Well, kind of a bizarre sight that a debate before any ballots have even been cast, and it's already narrowed down to only 3 candidates who qualified and only 2 who are willing to show up. Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis squaring off and scrambling for any last-minute Iowa support. An odd scenario just 5 days before ballots are cast.
Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
I think he was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies, but his way is not my way. I don't think that President Trump is the right president to go forward.
He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to hold Hillary accountable, and he let her off the hook.
An average of polls shows them trailing their collective target, Donald Trump.
The kids say.
the former president grabbing 51% of Republican Iowans, compared to 17 for DeSantis and 16 for Haley. Meanwhile, Trump again trying to steal the spotlight with his own event at the exact same time.
I think
A
succeeding
town hall
wildly.
on Fox News.
When you look at Ron's numbers, he's practically out of the race. He's also doing very poorly, as you know, in New Hampshire. I mean, really poorly. And I'm leading Biden in every single poll.
And his debate absence forcing Haley and DeSantis to focus on each other and aim for what now seems to be second place.
This is somebody that wrote in her book that Hillary Clinton inspired her to first run for office. I remember Hillary denigrating people on the Republican side as deplorables. We don't need a candidate who's going to look down on middle America.
The reason that he spent and blown through $150 million and gone down in the polls is because he spent more time trying to lie about me than he is about telling the truth about himself.
All of this kicking off the final stretch before Iowans caucus on Monday and possibly set the tone for the rest of the campaign. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
The problem really is that they're not wrong about each other.
Co-host.
Why did DeSantis? Why didn't he?
A pivotal
hang
night
out
at the podium
and,
for presidential candidates Wednesday as they faced each other in the final debate before.
Why didn't he go for the VP ticket on Trump? Like, why is he trying to run?
Well, here's my take on DeSantis, and I've liked DeSantis and what he's done in Florida and a lot of the things that he stood for. But my initial reaction this was early last year when everything was taking shape, and I've got friends that immediately jumped on the DeSantis bandwagon, saying that that it was time for a change and that we needed a fresh approach. And my only counter to them was Ron needed to wait his turn.
Yeah.
Okay. If Ron had just sat back, let this campaign go forward, let Trump move forward into the nomination, which he was going to do no matter who opposed him, and then waited for 2028, Ron would have been the star to be.
That's what I'm saying. Absolutely.
But he got some bad advice. Somebody, whispered in his ear and said, "You need to challenge Trump now." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And
I'm sitting here thinking. I'm looking now. The more I see DeSantis talk, I'm like, man, if he and Trump were 1-2, like, I don't know, man, that'd be. Yeah. I think you need someone a little like not so much bull. You need like maybe someone a little more level, a little more chill. Like,
well, Ron's very articulate. Ron is not Donald Trump. Okay, right. We can agree on that.
Right.
Ron has his own strengths. Trump has his strengths. But here's the deal. Number one, it wouldn't work for. There was a campaign out that wanted Don Ron.
Oh, okay.
Don
so they did think about
it. And Ron DeSantis, but they're both from the state of Florida, and you don't have a running mate from the same state.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two is he decided to create animosity with Trump, and that was a huge mistake.
Right.
Because
that's what I'm saying. He could have.
His whole start was attacking Trump. That's how he
poked the
got his
bear.
gas early on.
Yeah, he poked the bear, and the bear slapped him down.
You know what we call that in finance?
He lost, what, 80% of the Republican Party? Well, no, I mean, from these numbers, whatever, 12, what was it, 17 and 15?
17 and 16, yeah.
Yeah, like essentially 60%. Let's just call it 16% or 60%. I mean, you just alienated yourself, bro. Like
we call that short-term gains for long-term losses in the
political
financial
suicide.
world.
No one will ever vote for him. I wouldn't after seeing his whole shebang because it doesn't seem sincere. That's the thing. It seems like he's had this narrative of I'm gonna stand up to Trump. He doesn't, like, it just doesn't seem sincere. It seems like it's all staged.
Well, and Trump even said that at one point. DeSantis wouldn't be as big. He wouldn't even be running if it wasn't for Trump propping him up so much. You never bite the hand of your patron. Everybody knows that.
Trump, DeSantis would have never won the governorship without Trump.
No, not at all.
And that to me, that spells ingrate. And,
no, this has been his time. Memories. This has been his time in the sun. He's not going to be around next election. He won't.
Yeah, I think
by his own hands.
I think he blew it, and he took bad advice. And I've got friends within the party right now that, you know, I have one friend in particular who initially told me that he was in Ron DeSantis camp, and then yesterday he posted he's jumped the train to Nikki Haley now. And I said, bro, you need to jump one more train.
Yeah.
He says, no, I held my nose and voted for Trump in 16 and 20. I'm not doing it again.
Those tax cuts just smelled so bad.
And I said, you're focusing on the wrong thing. And this is what I tell a lot of my friends on the right is that they don't like Trump. And I said, you're focusing on minutia, on personality.
Yes.
You should be focusing on policy and accomplishment. Right. And what is more important for the nation? What somebody looks like, or what somebody sounds like, or what they do, what they actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
content of character.
Exactly. And that's just my position on that. There's things about Donald Trump that I don't like particularly, but you know what? They're unimportant to me. Right. I'm concerned about the country and what is going to happen to this country if the Democrats have another term.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you're talking about personality and all that, look at Obama. I mean, that guy is as charismatic and he's the whole package. But the devil appears as an angel of light. You know, I mean,
he's the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
As good as he talked, he still ate dogs.
The media. I want somebody who's got some warts. You know what I'm saying?
That's fine, exactly. And even Obama let out all of his warts. You know, I ate dogs. I did cocaine. You know, it's like he did that. He wrote that in his first book.
He didn't care, dude.
No, he didn't care.
The media ate out of his hand. They wouldn't, you know.
You know, Obama's father was a communist. You know that, right?
Literally.
Well, Obama's a communist.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like,
go to the clip about the 3 scenarios in Iowa, what they reveal about the GOP primary. I think that's an interesting one.
Very nice. One thing I wanted to mention before we get this clip up, I think Chris Johnson was wrong. Oh, please.
So we asked our political editor.
Go ahead.
You can write Aaron Zitner wonk.
Is this it?
To explain the polls.
Okay.
Hold on.
What are you saying?
What's up, Nick?
All I was saying was I think it was a really dumb idea for Chris Christie to drop out when he did, because he would have been the only different person on the debate stage. But, you know, did we really need to see him roll around on that? I don't think so.
All right, here we go.
Heading into the Iowa Republican caucuses look like, well, Trump winning. But what's interesting is what's happening down here. So we asked our political editor.
You can write Aaron Zitner wonk if you want.
To explain what's really happening in the first stop of the Republican primary.
Well, the race in Iowa is largely about who comes in second and by how much. It's going to give us the first clues in actual votes, not in polls or in media attention, to whether the Republican Party really is ready to consolidate behind Donald Trump.
Here's why the Iowa caucus will likely determine how the rest of the Republican primary will go.
Let's look at some of the scenarios that could come out of Iowa. First, and most likely, Donald Trump dominates. That would give us a lot of signals about where the Republican Party is right now.
Because the party in Iowa hasn't gathered behind Trump. Ron DeSantis has gotten Iowa's very popular Republican governor, and arguably the biggest evangelical leader in the state. And he's visited all 99 counties. Nikki Haley, meanwhile, has been campaigning hard in Iowa and is set up to spend the most in ads leading up to the caucus.
If Donald Trump runs away with the race in Iowa, that will tell us that even influential Republicans don't have the juice to persuade Republican voters that it's time to turn the page and to move on to another leader. A second possibility? Donald Trump wins, but by less of a margin, and the second place is kind of a tie between Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. that's also a good outcome for Donald Trump, because it will mean that voters who don't want him haven't consolidated around any individual contender against him, and instead are dividing their vote among multiple candidates.
That happened in 2016. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio split the non-Trump vote in a bunch of states, but that just allowed Trump to win and rack up the delegate count needed for the nomination.
And then we come to a third scenario, and that's the one where a single candidate emerges from Iowa with enough momentum to give Donald Trump a real race throughout the primaries.
If one candidate does well in Iowa, it would signal to voters in other states and donors that they're a viable contender. Just like it did for Trump in 2016 or Romney in 2012. They both came in second in Iowa, but won New Hampshire next, and eventually the nomination. And that's not unusual. Whoever wins Iowa usually doesn't become the nominee. It doesn't help that Iowa is
very agricultural and very rural. But there are some places that could give us clues to what might be coming next in the primary process. And we'll look for those here and here, right around Des Moines, and in the two university towns just north of Des Moines and over here at the University of Iowa. They're upper income, they are more highly educated, and that means they look a little bit more like the state of New Hampshire, which votes next. If Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis don't do well in these areas that are suburban and university heavy, it's a signal that they might not be doing well in the states that come next.
And there's another reason Haley or DeSantis might want to stay in the race: the numerous legal battles Trump is currently facing.
They don't want to have dropped out if something unexpected happens and all of a sudden Donald Trump isn't there to claim the nomination.
Not happening.
Iowa hasn't been a kingmaker. Instead, it's been a winnower, defining who the top candidates are going to be in the primary from a large field, and boosting the profile of those that do well. In 2024, it will do it again. But whether it winnows it to 1, 2, or 3 candidates will also show us if this primary will be over in 1 month or 6.
Fair conclusion.
So I'll go first. My money is on option number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen.
Especially after this debate performance.
So
I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see any. Now, was the whole point of that? I'm just curious. Was the point of that video? Wall Street Journal is pretty liberal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
even they're saying this.
They're trying to figure out how to defeat Trump. Like,
well, I just wanted to show that to show how.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I like it. I like seeing it. There are still a lot of people in this country that.
Well, when the truth's so obvious, you have to admit it. Otherwise, you look, like the schlup. It's just what it is. And they really have to admit it at this point that Trump is the one who's pushing forward, and this is not like any other Iowa caucus we've seen, because you saw how many candidates we used to have at this point in the state. No, so even that's amazing behind Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, let's close out with this one that I wanted to. Something happened yesterday. I don't know if you guys caught it on the news with Hunter Biden at Congress, where he made his little clown appearance, and as soon as Marjorie Taylor Greene was going to speak, he got up and walked out. Go to that clip where it says Hunter Biden walks out when Marjorie Taylor Greene speaks.
Okay, hang on. Hunter Biden walks out. Here we go.
And this is also a coward that sat right here in front of Mickey Babbitt, Ashley Babbitt's mother, who was murdered on January 6th by Michael Byrd, the Capitol police officer.
Big guns right out.
You want to talk about a committee of political sham? I'll totally disagree with you, Ms. Mace. That January 6th committee was not bipartisan. It was a complete setup to go after President Trump, go after Republicans, go after anyone that believes in free and fair elections, people that believe the Department of Justice should be fair and balanced, not a political weaponized department of the federal government that is targeting President Trump, his supporters, people that walked in the Capitol on January 6th, and now people that stood outside the Capitol. There's been no justice for Ashley Babbitt's family. Michael Byrd has never been charged with anything. He was let off, and he was given a promotion and allowed to walk free. And Hunter Biden just walked out. That is an example of not following the law. Hunter Biden thinks he's above the law. Don Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka, Trump family members had to come in to Democrat subpoenas and be questioned by Democrats for over 8 hours, each of them. Hunter Biden runs away. Hunter Biden did not come when we subpoenaed him. He did not follow the law. And then one of our colleagues helped him evade his subpoena by going and reserving a press conference for him on his behalf, helped him evade the subpoena, helped Hunter Biden break the law. Let's talk about his own father's words. President Joe Biden said in October 2021 that individuals who defy subpoenas from the January 6th House Select Committee should be prosecuted. And the Justice Department indicted Steve Bannon for doing so in November 2021. Hunter Biden's father, the President of the United States, said that he should be prosecuted. Anyone that defies a subpoena should be prosecuted. Hunter Biden didn't show up for his subpoena. Hunter Biden showed up today to make a clown show of himself, to show that he is nothing but someone that will not obey the law, that wants to show up when he wants to, and sits here with a smug look on his face and runs away when it's my turn to talk. Not only is he a criminal, but he is a coward. Nothing but a coward. Let's talk about voting for things. We have members on this committee that are on record on their own Twitter accounts talking about people blowing off subpoenas on the January 6th committee that states the rule of law is stirring all over America. That's Representative Jamie Raskin right here. I'll enter this for the record. Representative Jamie Raskin. Steve Bannon has been convicted of acting in contempt of Congress. My argument with Rep. Gates is now settled. If subpoenaed, you show up and assert any privilege you think applies to specific questions, but you can't blow off the proceeding. He blew it off. Walking in today is too late. We have to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress because he's not above the law, and neither is the President of the United States. And this committee has produced more evidence that any Democrat ever dreamed of having against President Trump and his family, while they constantly make up lies and attacks about the Trump family and President Trump. They make them up all day long. It's nothing but a political witch hunt. This committee has produced the evidence that Joe Biden has taken payments through his son, Hunter Biden, and all their dozens of fake LLCs. You can't buy a Biden product. You can't hire a Biden for a service unless you're a foreign country and you're asking and paying for political favors and political payouts. And that is exactly what the Biden brand is all about. We will hold Hunter Biden in contempt. And if the Democrats are not the hypocrites that they constantly display that they are, then they will vote for contempt of Congress because they voted for.
Yeah, we got 3 minutes.
Yep. Man, that was a nuclear blast at Hunter Biden, and
really was.
And it's going to show the American people that the DOJ is spineless because they will now not prosecute him for the same thing they prosecuted Steve Bannon for. So if that's not clear evidence of bias, I don't know what the heck is.
And now everybody sees it.
Here's a good proverb I read this morning. You know, I like to read it's word of God, truth right here. Proverbs 28, whoever walks in integrity will be delivered, but he who is crooked in his ways will suddenly fall. I mean, he's going to fall. They're going to fall. They're going to get what's coming to them. And at the end of the day, God is judge. I mean, I feel like Biden's too old. It's like, what are you going to do? Put him in jail for 3 years? Like he's going to be gone soon. But dude, he's going to be held accountable. You believe
me? I'd be happy with him going into a retirement home.
Absolutely. If I can make one thought on this, is that if I wanted to say something for anybody who's been a little bit black-pilled and not feeling so good about how things have gone since Donald Trump's election was stolen, we would have never gotten to where we are right now. Hunter Biden being dragged through literally to Congress. We never thought this would happen. None of this would have happened if the enemy didn't reveal their hand, if they didn't do everything they were doing. Yeah. Whenever you're faced with a political challenge, it is not a roadblock. It is a chance for you to gain experience and level up.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've been saying. Like, this dark cloud's a blessing in disguise. It's kick the bear. Yep. It's kick the sleeping giant, which is the American spirit. What
man does for bad, God uses for good.
Right. And it's, now there's going to be there's zeal. People are patriots again. They're, the love of, it's like you don't know what you have until someone tries to take it from you.
Very true.
And now people are waking up. It's like, oh shit, like, oh, my freedom. Like, I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. Everybody wants their house and their couch and their
people are coming together over Trump's second term in a way that America has not recently at all. We really have a chance for true American unity, even in a way that Donald Trump couldn't have imagined if he won this term that Biden has, illegitimately.
Well, I encourage everyone out there to pray for President Trump and his family. I encourage people to pray for the Iowa caucuses coming up Monday night, and let's revisit some results next week, and we'll talk about some other pertinent issues that are facing us in this primary season. But I'm going to be very glued to the TV on Monday. Oh, yeah. I want to see how, and the weather is brutal in Iowa, by the way. So they're talking about, that Trump has such a huge lead that there may be a lower turnout because people are going to be thinking that, it's a walk away. But I encourage people, if you're watching in Iowa for some reason, go to your caucus,
go and vote,
and cast your vote, and cast your opinion, because I think that's the American way, and weather shouldn't be an issue. Go for a few minutes, whatever you can, and do your duty, and make your voice heard. So I'm praying really strongly for this first caucus, and then we'll move forward from there. And also, of course, with all of President Trump's legal matters, I'm praying for his victory in those areas as well. And there's been some good news coming out of those areas, and we'll discuss that in future shows. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed and got some good information about what took place last night, and let's see what shakes out. But I'm a firm believer in the American spirit, and I believe that they have awakened a sleeping giant, and this time around, the left and the commies and all the rest of the left-wing pinkos are not going to be able to overcome it. The wave is going to be very strong. So thank you, everyone. Peter, thank you, Nick. I hope that we can talk some more throughout the next few days and next week. And let's try to put on a really good show next week with some important topics that are affecting American people's lives. So thank you, everyone. Good night, and God bless America.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you very much, everybody.